Who is the most fraudulent MVP since 2000? Over the last 24 years, who was the most fraudulent MVP since 2000?
You know, Bama said it right. When it comes to the MVP, it is a quarterback award, and it shouldn't be. Because I'm going to rehash something that I was talking about a little bit earlier. Because 2021 MVP, Aaron Rodgers, is the most fraudulent MVP since the 2000s. Let's be very clear on what Cooper Kupp did that year and why he should have won MVP. If any skill position should have won MVP since the 2000s, it is Cooper Kupp. Let's be clear. He won the Triple Crown that year. He had 1,900 yards receiving. He was only, you know how Calvin Johnson had the great year? He was only second behind Calvin Johnson. Only 20 receiving yards behind Calvin Johnson. He had 16 receiving touches, one top 10 in receiving touchdowns in a single season of all time. And then receptions, he clears. He clears when it comes to receptions. Cooper Kupp, when it comes down to that offense, was a huge contributor to leading that Rams offense to be as good as they were that year. Cooper Kupp in the slot was absolutely dominant. Nobody could stop him, even though they tried. And I know Cooper Kupp is one of those guys that you never would have expected to have such a great year, despite not being the most athletic, despite not being the best route runner, despite not having the best hands. But he basically null and void all of that. He had the greatest wide receiver season of all time that year. It should have been hands down Cooper Kupp winning the MVP that year. And it should have been a situation where we dismiss that myth in terms of MVP being a quarterback award. My answer is 2020 MVP, Aaron Rodgers, for the most fraudulent quarterback. Or most fraudulent.
Wait. Correct that. 2020 or 2021?
2021 MVP, Aaron Rodgers, is the most fraudulent MVP since the 2000s.
I think obviously since the 2000s, the most obvious fraudulent MVP has to be Rich Gannon. I mean, Rich Gannon in 2002, he literally just had 4,600 yards and 26 TDs and 10 interceptions. We were just talking about how this down year of quarterbacks where a skill position like Tyreek Hill or CMC should have won MVP. This was the exact same thing in 2002. You had Ricky Williams going for 1,900, 14 TDs. You had Priest Holmes going for 1,600, 22 TDs. You could have gave it to a skill position that wasn't quarterback award, and they've been doing this for years. Now, I get it. The Raiders won a lot of games. They went to the Super Bowl that year. I understand it. When we're talking about the individual or the best player, I'm sorry, Tom Brady, who we all call a game manager in 2002, was 28-14. That's better than Rich Gannon. That's better. That's better than Rich Gannon. We talking about like this running back pool because the running back pool is the best in the 2000s. You could have get us to any other the top running backs that went for 1,700 yards and 10 plus TDs. Rich Gannon was literally just because he was a quarterback. We've been preaching about this all time. Rich Gannon, which is playing okay. He had a great year with good year with Jerry Rice and the Raiders with Jerry Porter, but it wasn't the best year. The best year should have went to Priest Holmes or Ricky Williams. They were the best players for the MVP award. Rich Gannon has to be the most fraudulent because Cooper Kupp, come on, bro.
It hurts my heart to say this, but the worst MVP season of the 2000s is 2009 Peyton Manning. We're talking about a guy, he threw for 4,500 yards, but 16 interceptions, the highest interception percentage of his career, only 8.8 yards attempt. This is not the Peyton Manning that we know and love. This is the Peyton Manning that was slinging it, not being careful with the ball. This was not his best season. On defense, this team was in a lot of games was carried by the defense with Robert Mathis, Dwight Freeney on the edges, Calvin Hayden, Antonio Bethea doing their thing. This was a situation where Peyton Manning got it because we all understand he was a media darling and the league just wanted to give it to him because they won 14 games. We understand that they were a great team, but this was not an elite quarterback season by any means, especially the Peyton Manning standards. The real deserving winner of that, why it's also fraudulent, because we all know the best player that season was none other than Chris Johnson, one of the greatest running back seasons ever. 2,000 rushing yards in that Tennessee team with not a lot of other weapons. He was carrying that team. He was the AP Offensive Player of the Year. He should have won MVP, but my guy, I'm sorry, Peyton Manning. The worst MVP season of the 2000s is 2009 Peyton Manning.